Dun 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 dun. It's not like these fires we're seeing in California. It's not like they're like Malibu or the fires we saw in Canada and all the valuable land suddenly catching on fire and the cities and the valued places just burning up. There isn't an empire somewhere in a small Middle Eastern country with aspirations of world domination through the use of covert major corporations that exist who happen to be centralized and located in a small Middle Eastern country, whom all of our congressmen have to bow down, worship, and swear allegiance to. It's not like they could get control through wealth and power and covert things and secret government organizations under the under the cloud of climate change or agendas for the future, where they could use technology through these covert programs, keep it from even the leaders on military bases and such as to what was happening because it's top secret. And it's not like anybody from a James Bond movie style idea could use those weapons to burn up things like entire cities and also use weather weapons through Doppler radar towers and different things that exist and have patents and are also incorporated into cell towers and stuff. It's not like all of that could create hurricane force winds at the exact same time that you see strange beams coming down from the sky like a Death Star firing some kind of advanced weaponry into an area to create such fervent heat that the fires don't go out and that they burn up homes but not trees sometimes, even to the fact that they burn up cars and melt the glass out of the windows. And then the most oddity thing is when you see rims on the car's rims and the truck's rims, aluminum rims, which take a smelt, extreme heat that can't happen from a regular fire. And you see these car rims and you see the engines melt out of the cars because that's natural. But if you had a Death Star looming over with some kind of secret weapon that has patents for it now, and the military actually has, if someone was to fire those off to make sure that these fires can't go out or that they rage so hot that it would burn down cities, and then perhaps this secret world organization being run out of a small Middle Eastern country, covertly hidden under the idea of a mass corporation that comes in behind these devastations after they claim that the land is uninhabitable now, but that residents can't come back because there's some kind of contamination making the land uninhabitable to live, or the regulations are too strong. This hidden corporation comes in and buys up all the land. Well, that's exactly what happens after Katrina happened. This same country corporation came in and bought up land, pennies on the dollar. This is what happened in Malibu as they ran out residents who had generational property in Malibu so they could create a prison city, a dystopian city they planned to build there. And now we're watching, just before the transition of presidency, we're seeing California get the Death Star released on it. And the oddity behind that is that it won't be investigated by the government itself, because the government, as many people believe, the government is a captured entity as far as DC goes. And as far as any major corporate or major government players such as governors and stuff, they are captured entities, as they have sold allegiance, almost like a secret fraternity where people go through stages and take blood oaths and vow their life to the death to this secret organization. In James Bond, it was called Spectre. I believe these movies were created, and this is what I wrote about in my book, and after 20 years of research, I only continue to find that it supports that they release They release information to the public in movies and books, but mostly in movies. This information is released of how the system works so that it seems like fantasy, but they're actually releasing to you the truth behind how things operate on these higher levels. And since you aren't outraged or you refuse to use your conscience or your God given knowledge to do anything about it, resist it, then they have exposed it. They have told you what they're doing, and you have given them in the spiritual realm legal right to do the evil things that they are doing. This goes back into King Solomon or Solomon witchcraft wisdom, where the keys to Solomon and all of these things. All the forms of higher witchcraft that are known came from the practices and writings of King Solomon as he learned how to control the spiritual entities. He learned how to control all of these different things. Whereas at one time he had power through God's blessing to control these. He gave up that power by swearing allegiance or bowing down to entities for different things that he desired, such as women. And then through that, he had to use his knowledge of these demonic entities and their weaknesses, because when he learned how to control them, then he could question them and find out how their principalities and powers worked, and he knew how to get them to do things or force them to do things through spiritual legality. And so when he fell from his power from God, he had to protect his kingdom and stuff through the use of witchcraft later, by manipulating and controlling these demons through that process. And that is through the writings is how we ended up with the modern forms of witchcraft at the high levels. And this is what is being practiced on the world now by, some call it Enochian magic, but it is really King Solomon magic. And it's being practiced and used on us by high level people from this small Middle Eastern country who are exercising their religious beliefs that they should dominate them and control the world. And they're doing as Solomon did. Instead of being blessed by God and being given this power and authority by God, they're using Solomonistic witchcraft on the world. And because the average person, the Christian, is also under the spell from their pastor and stuff selling them and using this magic on them, they can't see it. And that's why I write about it in this very special book called Reason to Believe, that has sold thousands and thousands of copies now of people who are like, I want to know what's happening. So when you learn that this is going on, every event such as this fire, such as this power grab, these things that are going on in Washington, why certain people never get in trouble who clearly violate the laws up into the levels of treason and stuff. These are my opinions, of course. I'm not stating them as fact. I'm stating them as opinion. But I believe my opinion is backed up by some pretty good deductive reasoning that would hold up in a court of law as far as being reasonable evidence or evidence that has plausibility to it, what they call beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why I call it reason to believe. So if you take a look at this whole genre taking place where we are being traumatized by these events right before the transition into a new presidency, it's difficult to tell whether they're just simply taking advantage of the situation in and of itself, and it's all smoke and mirrors, or they know that this president may slow down what it is they're fighting for. He may be there may be two sides to this spectrum of things where there's an evil and a good fighting. However, because of the evidence of this new regime that's moving into power, because they seem to be supporting Spectre, and are openly in support of the home country that controls Spectre, it's difficult to believe that the transition of this administration coming in is actually in opposition to Spectre. I hope this makes sense as I'm saying this, because I'm having to extremely watch my words as to what's happening. What I believe is going on is just like The Simpsons. When you watch these clips from The Simpsons where 10, 15 years in advance, they know exactly, or they predict exactly something that's going to happen in the future, like the presidency of Donald Trump, or mass fires, or some strange secret society involved in a smart city being developed, or a city that has a dome that's been built over it and nobody can get out. There's no way to predict or know these things without using, even within this cartoon that seems like a cartoon, but it's really a form of reaching out and externalizing the hierarchy, using quantum computers, which tap into entities that have the ability to envision and know future events. And that's the only explanation. There is no simple explanation such as people just guessing in a fantasy land. You can't guess to the exact T of someone becoming president and then 15 years earlier knowing and visualizing the exact way they would get inaugurated, and what color tie they would have on, and what color dress their wife would wear, and exactly where everyone would stand behind them, and when somebody would scratch their nose or something. You cannot predict things without a kind of crystal ball into the future. So just allowing you to visualize yourself to know that this is a truthful thing dealing with the Solomon magic and seeing into the future. We are dealing with a spiritual level of things, and Christians who should know of all these things, because you should know your enemy. You should know what's going on in your land, because it is your land. This is not a certain mafia's land. This is not the earth of so Judas went back to those who rejected Christ. Judas, and most of the Christian church has become Judas and gone back to the same people that Judas went to, and therefore lost the ability to know their enemy, and lost the ability to have the dominion and power that they're supposed to have. So, this is why I created a book about this, to re-empower and let Christians know how this has been taken away and what's happening. And then subsequently created a follow-up book on then how to prosper after you realize what's happening. So both of these things are essential. Like, you have to have these at this point in time. You have to have these to reverse and understand that the Solomon magic is being practiced on you. And then there's forms and powers, and entering into boldly being able to enter into the throne room in the kingdom of God, in the higher courts, because of the blood of Jesus, and that Christians can enter into these things and take dominion and defeat this evil stuff and operate on different levels, because you're supposed to be operating on higher levels. In fact, dominion and authority is given to you, but instead you're operating under the control of a pastor. That's why they have these churches, and the churches and the pastor want you to bring people into that church so they can have dominion and authority and control over believers. And that's partially why the evil force, the Spectre, pays so much and controls the churches and has pastors under their control, because they don't care if you become a Christian, because when you become a Christian, then they know that you're going to obey the laws, and you're going to listen to things, and you're going to be submissive, so long as you're following the tutelages of these sold out pastors who have taken their 30 pieces of silver. So anyway, these fires, the events, these crazy things taking place, they're happening and they're being done, and they feel evil, and you can tell that something's wrong, and you keep watching the news hoping somebody's going to do something about it. And they keep telling you about this person who did something evil, and the fact that, all these people who are the opposite of, they have the opposite viewpoints of any kind of biblical rulership. They're all woke. They care more about getting more woke people and more people who think like them into positions of power, and operating and creating a big woke love fest in opposition to God. That's what they care about, far and above actually protecting people, because they're all under a perverse mindset. So this is how your country starts to fall once these things start to take place. And you have the imbalance. We have the imbalance right now of presidential cabinets where 75% of the people in a presidential cabinet are directly in support of, or directly employees of Spectre, and helping a small Middle Eastern country dominate the world. You should never have anybody who has a citizenship in of a secret society, or a secret connection to a foreign country, being on the presidential cabinet of your country. And yet your church has taught you that all the best people for the jobs are all Judas. And that's what we're faced with now. And they're desperately, in this great reset, desperately afraid you're going to figure that out. All right, that's all I'm going to talk about today as part of this wake up. So if you want if you want to know what's going on, I'll leave a link in the description below to get copies of the two courses. One, the one that wakes you up and explains everything to you about what's been happening to you since you were a child. And the other is how to reverse it and do something about it in your own life. And from there, it will spread to your friends and family as you're able to explain to them in ways they've never heard before, that they can't deny about what's going on. So thanks a lot. This is Dan Collier for the Sons of Light and the Search For series. There'll be links below if you want to get in touch with me. If you have questions you want to ask me, I have a consultant link. And you have something very important you need answered about life, then you can leave me a message and I'll get back with you. All right, guys, we will talk to you soon.